Good morning. My name is Jen and I'm helping Linda today, so don't be alarmed. This is not Linda's voice. We just wanted to let you know that you can use the chat for any technical difficulties that you might have, and I will be helping her on that end and be happy to assist you. We welcome you today to learn more from Linda. And Linda, you can take it away.
Thank you, Jen. Good morning, good afternoon. We have people on the West Coast that are probably still drinking their morning coffee. Certainly here on the East Coast, we have people from our South, and our neighbors in Canada would love to welcome all of you. And being a program about gratitude, wanted to share our gratitude for you sharing our time together today. I know your days are busy. Today's program is about what leaders should know about the positive impact of employee engagement. Some of you may know me. For those of you who do not, I am an ACC certified coach out of the Institute of Coaching Federation, and I am certified in a brain-based coaching methodology out of the Neuroleadership Institute. And I think when we hear the term employee engagement, we've all read the blogs and the articles, and we've heard the keynote speakers about employee engagement. I hope that in today's program, you'll find a unique approach to employee engagement that brings the latest research on gratitude, translates that research a little bit further with more research on neuroscience, all within the context of influencing a positive and healthy work environment. And so if you look at staffing and talent management, you certainly know from all the surveys that employee engagement and retention are top concerns and critical issues. And if we're looking at the finances, we know that the higher the engagement, the higher the business results, the more profit, the better shareholder return. So a great time to really take a look at the research and gratitude. Our objectives for today: review the research, gain some perspective, expand some insights on the cultural influence, and there's some tools and techniques that I'd like to share with you. But I also want to leave some time at the end for questions and answers, but also time for you to share what you might be doing, what you already have in the works in terms of embedding gratitude into your organizational culture. As we do with all of our webinars, we ask you to consider a couple of questions as we go through the program. And you could write your responses in the chat box during this webinar or close to the end. So the questions for today are: what else would you like to know about gratitude in the workplace? And your input will certainly help us improve programs in the future. And what would help you create more gratitude in your professional settings? So I thought we would start with a warm-up today. So I'm going to ask you to think about 3 warning signs that your organization might need more gratitude. And you can answer yes or no in the chat box. So first, someone in your organization has a disgruntled attitude. Yes or no? And if they do, that negativity is invading your headspace, it's dragging our coworkers down, and it is creating poor morale and possibly already loss of productivity. Next, someone in your organization is constantly complaining, finger pointing, blaming. Yes or no? And if that is true, then it's occupying so much of your energy, you may be losing top performers and hindering customer and client satisfaction. And 3, someone in your organization only finds gratitude one day of the year. Yes or no? And that holiday is coming up next month for Thanksgiving. Gratitude is not a panacea, and it is certainly not a quick cure for toxic people or toxic work environments. You know, we sometimes hear people call a discussion on gratitude as the soft stuff. Or sometimes we hear, hey, you get a paycheck. That's how grateful I am. And there's still others that will push it and say this is totally an HR issue, and that's where it belongs. But we know from the current research that it offers evidence-based practices that influence the quality of leadership, the quality of team performance, and the ability to create the positive work environment. Some of you may have heard of Dr. Robert Emmons, who is the most renowned researcher on gratitude. And so I thought I would introduce some of his research and describe exactly what is gratitude. So Emmons says we process gratitude in two ways. It's the affirmation of goodness and the recognition of goodness outside of ourselves. And it also engages three aspects of our mind. We intellectually recognize the benefit, we willingly acknowledge the gift or the giver, and we emotionally appreciate the gift or the giver. And there's two other components. To be grateful, we must perceive genuine effort from the giver. And to be grateful, it must be something that we consider valuable and important to us. So at the foundation of gratitude are our values. Gratitude is considered a strength. Gratitude is considered a state of being grateful. So you'll hear me use the terms gratitude and recognition interchangeably in the program today. But we know that we must start with the state of being grateful first. Some of you participated last month in our webinar on the personal benefits, and I thought a really quick refresher would be helpful, particularly if you're looking to implement a gratitude program in your organization. It will only be as successful as you are in creating and sustaining your own gratitude practice. So very roughly, the research particularly out of UC Davis, we sleep better, it strengthens our immune systems, lowers our blood pressure, we have healthier eating habits, more positive emotions. So the list goes on and on as to the personal benefits that we receive. In the context of why gratitude matters in our culture, studies show that leaders who express gratitude gain employees' respect and trust. So as a leader, it says, you're human. You care about your employees. You're paying attention to what they're doing and you see their work. Douglas Conant, who used to be or is the former CEO of Campbell Soup, it's well documented that he sent out 20 thank you notes a day to staff at all levels. And every 6 weeks he met for lunch with a group of employees to get their perspective on the business, to find out what problems they were dealing with, to really get their feedback. How's that for gaining respect and trust from employees? So leaders like Conant and Doug Roush, who's the retired CEO of Trader Joe's, both had a profound sense of personal gratitude that transformed their relationships with their employees and created a culture of gratitude. There's also a pay it forward component of gratitude, that reciprocity that we feel when someone does something for us, we in turn want to do the same for them. It does improve interpersonal relationships and creates more pro-social behaviors. So think about teamwork. Grateful people are less angry, they're less hostile, and there are less undesirable behaviors in teams that practice gratitude and or recognition. There was a study on grateful employees that showed they had more satisfying relationships, they had a greater bond to their community, greater collaboration, and more interdependency. So think cross-functional teams that we work with, you all work with, and how helpful that would be in the team's performance. And gratitude within our culture creates resilience. So the research suggests that it's associated with positive well-being, adapted personality traits, we're able to develop and maintain positive relationships. We bounce back after setbacks. It increases our positivity. Fast Company had an article on gratitude in the workplace, and they interviewed a vice president from Mattress Firm who says he starts every day writing 3 thank you notes. And he said, quote, "It helps me create a mindset to approach challenges in a positive way." For those of you on the call today from the healthcare space, there's a study published in the International Journal of Workplace Healthcare Management on work satisfaction and well-being of nurses. And the study found gratitude to be a consistent predictor of less exhaustion, less cynicism, more proactive behaviors, higher rating of health and climate surveys, and fewer absences due to illness. And for those of you that might be in the sales or marketing arena, there's a study of a jewelry store that called their customers and personally thanked them for their purchases. It increased their customers' purchases by 70% over a year's time. So from the research, practicing gratitude, embedding it personally and within our culture has the ability to generate trust and respect, to tap into those interpersonal relationships and resilience and positivity. How many of us have seen this joke, this caption? So how do we move from this type of sarcasm to a profound sense of gratitude? I think we start by looking at how we think. There's a neuroscientist by the name of Rick Hanson. He wrote, "Our brains take the shape the mind rests upon. Rest your brain on worry, sadness, annoyance, and irritability, and it will take the shape neurally on anxiety, depression, and anger." We know what the brain looks like on gratitude. For years, we thought gratitude was a simple emotion about receiving something nice. But today, researchers have found patterns of brain activity that shows it to be quite a complex emotion. It isn't merely activating the reward centers of our brain. It actually activates multiple regions of our brain that's associated with moral cognition, with fairness, financial decisions, connecting with others. It even allows us to take the perspective of other individuals that we're working with. I trained through Dr. David Rock's program. This quote has really resonated with me: to intentionally address the social brain in service of optimal performance will be a distinguishing leadership capability in the years ahead. Our brain experiences our workplace first and foremost as a social system. And so when people feel betrayed or unrecognized, they experience a neural impulse as powerful as a physical blow to the head. And you know, we rationalize when we're not appreciated, or we rationalize when we feel that we're not valued as, hey, I need to get over it, or we might even tell our coworkers, move on. But that really limits our commitment and our engagement to an organization. Social threats have greater intensity than physical threats. They come on quicker and they last much longer. Last year, while working with a client in the financial services industry, they were promised a promotion. And there were multiple occasions where they were told, it's in the bag. But guess what? It wasn't in the bag. And so among the things that this individual needed to do from a self perspective was to find gratitude in herself. She used gratitude amongst other support or resources to heal and to move past that pain. So we know from the neuroscience that our brain has one organizing principle, and that is that we have two emotional states: away from a threat and toward for a reward. And Rock has coined a acronym here, SCARF, that says we filter threats and rewards through these 5 domains of status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. So we thought it would be interesting to look at gratitude and recognition through the lens of the SCARF model. So if we want to increase the reward response to status, leaders can give positive feedback to their employees, especially in public, or you can give them opportunities to learn, to attend a conference, to go to school, to go to a training program, to help them improve their performance. And then, of course, we need to pay attention to those improvements. To increase the reward response to certainty is to be as specific as possible when we're recognizing or expressing gratitude to employees. That level of certainty, that level of specificity produces more of the behaviors and the outcomes that you're looking for. Having autonomy makes employees feel valued and trusted. And when they feel more valued and trusted, their input improves. So give recognition to the individual contributor. And if we need to give the team's contribution recognition, then we shift to relatedness. Increase the reward response to relatedness. Find ways to increase safe connections with your team, and then recognize that effort. Some of you may be familiar with Google's Project Aristotle, where they wanted to find out what were the top elements, the contributors to high-performing teams, and psychological safety was the #1 contributor to great teamwork. That ability to have conversations, feel that there's no repercussions, feel that there is safety in what we share with each other. And one of the fastest ways to erode fairness in the workplace from a gratitude recognition lens is to give recognition unequally. And that doesn't mean we give everybody the same kind of recognition, but it must be fair. And it needs to be genuine. Where as humans, we're great at recognizing what's genuine and what's not. So a neurological perspective, engagement is closely linked to the threat and the reward functions of our brain. Gallup defines employee engagement as 100% psychological commitment. So now that we know that our brains are activated in different regions, we understand that engaged employees feel higher levels of collaboration. There's greater cognitive resources available to them. They're able to solve more complex problems. And so what we see happening now are that the engagement studies are becoming more and more aligned with the research in gratitude and neuroscience. I did not want to bring up what we normally read and hear of engagement reports out of Gallup. So we know that there's a few that are deeply engaged and too many that are disengaged or actively engaged. I thought it would be interesting to put it through a neurological viewpoint. So actively disengaged, we can put those individuals in a high threat state. And we can move all the way through the continuum to the deeply engaged, where there's a strong reward state. And any of you on the call today that use Gallup's Q12 survey for employee engagement might be interested to know that of the 12 questions, 6 have to do with status. 1 has to do with certainty. Another for autonomy. 2 questions are related to relatedness and 1 to fairness. And so the connection between the SCARF and how we filter threats and rewards through those domains is amazingly collaborative with the Q12. So a question to think about after today is, how can you help your employees experience all 5 or more, or some of the reward domains? So let's have some cocktails. One caveat. I'm not suggesting that all we need to do is mix up some neurochemical cocktails and voila, our engagement scores are off the charts. Good. But I thought, let's have some fun and let's heighten our awareness to these neurochemicals that all of us have. A shot of dopamine. Whether you're expressing gratitude for what's good in your life or at work, or showing gratitude to someone at work, our brainstem releases dopamine. And dopamine makes us feel good. And because it feels good, we want more. So it really triggers positive emotions. It fosters those pro-social behaviors. It's also linked to intrinsic motivation in goal accomplishment. And that's really important because performance recognition is one of the highest drivers of employee engagement. I like to use the example of the chimes on our text messages. That's why we tell ourselves to put our phones in the glove compartment. Because when we hear that chime, we get a shot of dopamine. We feel good. Somebody wants to connect with us, right? Social system. And so that's why it's so difficult to stop texting. A swig of serotonin. When we reflect on the positives in our life, when we write down the positives in work, our brain releases serotonin, and it enhances our mood. So think antidepressant. It also increases our willpower and motivation. It's been called, and I think this is great, it's been called the leadership chemical. So writing thank you notes or journaling or listing 3 good things that happened to you in a day activates and helps create a sense of pride and confidence. An ounce of oxytocin. How many of you have walked out of a team dinner and felt, wow, what a great team I have? Or how many of you have a one-on-one with your boss and you walk out of there and you just feel that you've got such a great connection. There's great trust between the two of you, a feeling of safety. That is a release of oxytocin. You know, within milliseconds, our brain can take a person's gestures, a tone of voice, the context of what they're saying, and we can determine quickly their trustworthiness. And so if we resonate with a person like that, whether it's a teammate or a boss, we have that release of oxytocin. The good news about oxytocin is that it inhibits cortisol, which is our stress hormone. Well, there's some good news in that. We compared several studies on employee engagement, and we saw such a strong correlation between those studies and gratitude and neuroscience and the positive impact on employee and organizational results. And we found that employees work harder when there's strong recognition, when that recognition, that gratitude is tapping into what they consider valuable or what they're trying to achieve for the company. And that increases their commitment. They have greater job satisfaction. They're proud of their work. So rewards and recognition programs is a $46 billion market. And most of those recognition programs focus on tenure-based programs. So annual anniversaries, 1-year anniversary, 5-year anniversary, employee of the year. And so the correlates of gratitude and neuroscience helps us improve the overall psychological capital of our employees. And that's simply defined as the positive and developmental state of our staff, of our employees. It's a driver of productivity. It strengthens our relationships. You know, a lot of us work in cross-functional teams. Last year I was working with a cross-functional team And one of the challenges that they were addressing was the difficulty in relationships between hourly and salary team members. And because this team, this small team, had really developed their own safe space, their own safe connections, they were able to have really important discussions about how they feel or don't feel appreciated, how they don't feel that they value to the overall team outcomes. And I heard comments such as, I didn't know you felt that way about me. And to hear that makes me want to work even harder. And this is what I want the rest of our team to be able to work together much better than we are working today. You could feel a huge shift in what that team came to recognize that day. So again, part of the relationships that are strengthened. If you're looking to create a culture that embodies or strengthens gratitude, think of it in terms of a comprehensive strategy. Take the research from today's program or any of the research that's out there. This is in the public domain. Make it a primary element of your leadership development programs. Design your cultural initiatives based on the research of gratitude and neuroscience. Make it a leadership essential and align the gratitude with the values and the strengths and the performance of your staff. That's essential. Sometimes we hear that the values are given lip service. They're printed up, they're hung on the wall. But if we don't really know what our actions, what our values look like in action, a culture of gratitude is not going to be able to be sustained. And if performance evaluations is more about shoring up weaknesses and less about the potential, our gratitude culture can't be sustained. And I'm not at all suggesting that we sweep performance issues under the rug. They have to be addressed quickly and if we can't mentally and neurally see what it looks like to be at our best or our team at its best, a culture of gratitude can't be sustained. O.C. Tanner Institute has just done some recent research that shows engagement improves when we're giving, receiving, and observing recognition, gratitude in the workplace. And in fact, their latest study shows peer-to-peer recognition or expressions of gratitude are creating even higher levels of engagement. This past winter, I presented a program on the neuroscience of gratitude to an association of multinational organizations. And the key takeaway from this was that high recognition satisfaction correlates with high engagement and retention. And this was worldwide. So we might recognize differently in India or Great Britain or the US or China or Australia. Aside from those preferences, the high satisfaction in our the way we recognize each other correlates to the high engagement scores. Real quickly, obstacles on gratitude. Entitlement is actually the opposite of gratitude. It reminds me of a quote by Dr. Brené Brown. What separates privilege from entitlement is gratitude. We're also hardwired for negativity, so we're going to see what's wrong before we can acknowledge what's good. Distractions, we have them in every facet of our life. If we believe that expressing gratitude creates complacency, we won't be able to get to a place of gratitude. And if we do consider gratitude soft stuff, we'll see that as an obstacle. If we also have someone in our organization that feels that they are where they are today without the help of or resources from anyone else, they won't be able to get to a place of gratitude. So a few guidelines. Several themes that we hear all the time kind of feeds into these guidelines. We often hear there's an extreme overload at work. There's a coworker or coworkers that are very, very difficult to work with. And there's a need to improve and motivate our teams, but we can't get them engaged. And that might sound familiar to some of you. So it really starts with you. If we want more gratitude and recognition in our workplace, we have to have that profound sense of gratitude in our own lives. We need to keep it specific, really specific at the values and the behaviors and the contributions that we're recognizing. It needs to be genuine and frequent. And leadership really does set the tone. It starts at the top. The same with values. What values our leaders demonstrate are the same values that our staff demonstrates. There's a great book called Grateful Leadership. And one of the practices they talk about is thank the invisible people in your organization. Some individuals might feel that it makes them vulnerable to food. And so practice on the invisible people in your organization or your community. They're always there. You aren't setting their hourly rate. You're not setting their salary. You're not grading their performance. And so it allows us to express to them the gratitude that we have for what they contribute to the organization. And if you're able to experience that, you will be amazed at how great that makes you feel. And you can see a huge shift in those individuals that you express gratitude to. It's not a competitive sport. So we can't be grateful for something that we have because someone else does not have it. And we can't be grateful because our team has something that another team doesn't have. It's not a competitive sport. So I love this gecko trying to get over this gap between the walls. There is a gratitude gap, and it's based on a national study that the John Templeton Foundation commissioned. 90% of the participants thought themselves as grateful, and yet only 52% of the women and 44% of the men that were surveyed said they actually expressed it on a regular basis. And they were even less likely to express gratitude at work, but at the same time, they were eager to get gratitude from their boss. So there is a gap, and here's a tool that we put together to help close that gap. We call it the gratitude maps. If distractions keep us from practicing gratitude, then mindfulness allows us to reflect on blessings, on abundance, on where we have positive energy in our lives. Now with mindfulness, right, we have greater awareness. And with awareness comes choice. And the choice is, I'm going to acknowledge. So we talk about scheduling a deliberate practice. Maybe you start the day with 5 things you're grateful for, or you write a thank you note, or you want to connect with one individual on a regular basis throughout a month period of time. That acknowledgement is something we can commit to our calendars. Preference. How do you prefer to express gratitude? Individually, it might be journaling. If we're expressing gratitude to someone else, how do you think they prefer to hear your message? Maybe it's in writing, maybe it's face-to-face, maybe it's public, maybe it's private. However we do that, it needs to be rooted in our values. Again, remember the genuineness, the tapping into somebody's values, something that is really important to the individual. And specificity. Greatest benefits that come from practicing gratitude are when we recognize specific people, actions, experiences, behaviors that are meaningful. And how have we benefited by what someone has done? And what does that say about the individual that we're expressing gratitude for? So think of gratitude maps as a way of heightening our awareness. of gratitude. Some practices. If you're looking at this comprehensive strategy, think specifically about how to build in values and strength and performance. Remember, performance recognition is one of the strongest ways to increase engagement. Start at the top. Lead from where you are. Practice gratitude for yourself and then also with your teams. Many of us have coaching opportunities throughout the day. And it allows us to influence what we're recognizing. How can we coach each other on what influences our values and our strengths in our expressions? Some people have gratitude walls or gratitude buddy. There are gratitude journals or platforms that some organizations use. University of Berkeley Finance Department has an electronic platform on the intranet. And so anyone that has access to that intranet can acknowledge what somebody has done to help them, expressing gratitude and appreciation for what an individual has done. There's also a company by the name of Snack Nation, and they put vending machines in companies that are filled with healthy snacks. Every Friday at any office in any area of the country, at 4 o'clock Friday afternoon, they have a program called Crush. And it is all about peer-to-peer recognition. And so they talk about what they're grateful for, how that has impacted each other, and how they can continue to do that. So I'm going to stop here and see if there's anybody that wants to add something to the chat box about what it is that you might be doing, thinking about doing, or maybe we haven't even talked about it, and share and learn from us. What is it that you have in terms of gratitude and recognition already present that we can learn from? You know what? I'm looking back here, if you don't mind. Lots of agreement, lots of yeses. It's draining us. Does gratitude mean money? Well, often if we recognize an employee and there is some gift associated with it, we get a little extra bump. But some of the research that I've reviewed says that if employees are recognized, if they receive these expressions of gratitude, it means much more to them than maybe a 5% bonus. So it isn't all about the money. Someone writing thank you letters. Thank you letters are a great way of expressing gratitude. Putting it in writing is a really helpful way, not only for us to create stronger neural pathways from gratitude, but it's very meaningful to the person that receives those thank you notes. Someone here does monthly lunch and breakfasts. That's great. Whoops, wait a minute. Sorry. Wow cards, excellent. And a $2 off a purchase. Yeah. So, you know, a little monetary gift seems to go a long way. Many of you have heard about neuroplasticity, the plasticity of our brain to grow and strengthen new connections. And that's really embedded in this neuroscience that if we're hardwired for negativity, we can create stronger neural pathways to look at what it is in our life that we're grateful for. There's one person who recognizes staff timely, excellent, regarding contributions that impact quality of care and impact patient care. That's great. Monthly breakfasts. Here was a question: how often should I write letters? I suggest that we practice some form of gratitude at least once a week. You know, initially the research had studies that asked people to write in a gratitude journal every day. And what they found was that became a chore. People lost interest in it. So now the research says maybe write a thank you note or write in your journal 3 times a week. Personally, I write in my gratitude journal once a week, every Friday, and I try to list between 3 and 5 things, getting that into that specificity. So the term, another term for specificity is gratitude density. So what is it in particular? With what great detail can we describe what we are grateful for, who we're grateful for, what have we received by the good intentions of others? If someone has our back, you know, how do we express gratitude for what they did? I'm looking at the chat box here. Send a personal thank you note via email, in person, or by text to say thank you for your performance. That's great. That's great. Monthly breakfast. Any question? Go ahead and put any other questions that you have. I did have a quote that I wanted to read to you, and I don't remember where I got it, so I'm not going to claim it, but I thought it was quite fitting for today. Show us a corporate culture infused with gratitude, and we'll show you a culture of civility, compassion, and courtesy. So it's a culture where people aren't weighed down by negativity or toxicity of complaining, but a culture where people feel safe and able to express their gratitude. Any other questions? Well, I see from all the yeses that you have some warning signs in your organization that will say, yes, we need some more gratitude. And so I hope that when you take a look at some of these practices that we've talked about, that you might see a way to start implementing maybe in the smallest way. So, you know, if we're talking about a comprehensive strategy, it might feel overwhelming, and there has to be a really great communication strategy. It has to be easy to use. Some of the best strategies include online and offline access. It's helpful to have gratitude ambassadors. It's if you can get yourself and your leadership to champion gratitude as an element of your culture, then it's easier to get some more champions on board that will demonstrate the types of recognition and gratitude exercises or activities that you're doing. Building it into performance reviews is also another way to practice gratitude, to embed it into our organizations. Starting staff meetings with going around and asking people what they're grateful for. I recently shared this with somebody, and they said, you know what, we started to do that, but now it just feels bland. Now it doesn't seem to have the same meaning. And if that's the case, then perhaps we're not as specific as we should be in expressing gratitude for what somebody has done. So again, why it made a difference. What did that individual do? What were the behaviors? What were the actions that were most meaningful to us? And build that in. Let's see, how else are we on questions? How are we on time?
Linda,
Yeah.
someone put in the Q&A, how do we get leaders to understand the importance of gratitude?
Mm. Well, that was actually one of the reasons why I wanted to share what Doug Conant from Campbell Soup and Doug Roush from Trader Joe's, because the leaders, the top leaders of our organization, need to be profoundly practicing gratitude. And so if there's any obstacles that we just talked about, if they're too distracted, if there's a sense of entitlement, if their hardwiring to see what's wrong is really where they go on all occasions, they're not going to be able to own this themselves. And accountability, ownership is part of our dialogue in any organization today. And so encouraging top leadership to tap into their own gratitude can come by us demonstrating to them our expressions of gratitude. Think of that reciprocity. So if I were to express appreciation or gratitude to the CEO of the company, I know, based on what we know from neuroscience, that certain areas of their brain are going to light up. And that reciprocity is going to want them to share some expression of gratitude, either back with you or with someone else in the organization. So sometimes we have to coach up and include them in how we are practicing gratitude so that they begin to become more aware. And again, we always say, with awareness, we have choice. And so the more that you are practicing it and demonstrating that, whether it's up or over or down within our organization, it is observable, quite observable. And that ties into the O.C. Tanner Institute research about giving, receiving, and observing. I have a question here. I hope I answered that question that Jen just asked. Someone says, thank you so much. I have several items to begin implementing today. That's great. Question, Ron, is a thank you to a large group of staff at one time meaningful? Absolutely. So think of the teamwork that we try to create in our organizations. And so think about the preference of the team. When we were looking at showing gratitude and appreciation in China for this program that I did in the winter, we realized that in China, individual recognition is embarrassing. It's humiliating to an employee. It's all about the team there. So look at the preference of your group, of your team, and see if you can identify whether or not a group acknowledgement, recognition, expression of gratitude works well. Then also your individuals, your staff really well. And maybe in addition to that group recognition, tapping into one or two of them where they feel that one-on-one with you would be even more meaningful. And someone just said, the more we talk about gratitude, the more people can communicate with each other, including upper management. Michelia, you're so correct. If we can get beyond it feeling like it's soft, or that it makes us look vulnerable, or that it belongs in human resources, if we can get beyond that and talk about it just as we are today. And I'm so thankful that we have people from all over our country and in Canada that are interested in this subject. So the more we talk about it, yes, the more aware we become and the more we can build it into our lives. Any other questions? So that, yes, Paul, the key is being genuine. We can spot somebody that's being disingenuine very, very easily. Gratitude is not about being indebted to someone. And so if we do something for someone and we want them to express gratitude because then they'll do something for us, we're on the opposite side of gratitude. It's not about being indebted. And remembering that gratitude blocks toxic emotions. Maybe I've already said this, but I think it's worth repeating. It blocks anger. We cannot be angry and grateful at the same time. We can't be mad or envious and grateful at the same time. So there's really some promising research that is coming out, that is out on gratitude and neuroscience, and I hope that someone said that they already have a few ideas for what they can implement. That is awesome. I'm happy if you can take one thing from today and use that at work. Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for your time. Another question. If you acknowledge certain individuals at monthly staff meetings, will that alienate the ones that did not get recognized? I would answer that as it may. Here's what I have found. When we recognize someone, usually individuals that observe that begin to feel that they want some of that recognition as well. So, honestly, if there's somebody that is in this downward spiral of complaining, or if their attitude is the furthest thing from gratitude, they may feel alienated, but from what I see in the research, it really inspires us to do something within our team or within our individual performance so that we begin to get that recognition as well. So yes, maybe, but based on the research, it has a greater potential to inspire others to do good work. I think that's the last. So I wanted to remind you all that in November, we have the third in the series of webinars on gratitude and discovering the health and wellness benefits. It'll be Wednesday, November the 8th from 12 noon to 1. We thought it was great to do the more personal reflection during the month of Thanksgiving. I know that we have all heard people reflect on Thanksgiving seems to be a more enjoyable holiday than in December. So we hope to bring you some new knowledge, some research, both from research on gratitude and also on the health and wellness through the neuroscience, and make it even a greater Thanksgiving season for all of you. A quick reminder, we have a few more minutes. If you haven't put these any responses to the questions in the chat box, please do. What else would you like to know about gratitude in the workplace? Again, that is going to help us provide even better programming in the future. And what would help you create more gratitude in your professional settings? So what is it that you think would help create more gratitude? What would you see yourself implementing? That would really be appreciated if you could do that. I will stay on the line after 1 o'clock if some of you want to touch base and go longer. I'm happy to do that. Thank you, Janet, who says, first seminar, very helpful, took notes, look forward to putting them into practice. Awesome. We will stay in touch with you on the topics. When we send this recording, which everybody will receive, you'll see a list of resources. I got some books at the bottom here that I've read, I love. I think you will find them to be very, very helpful. I'll make sure that you get that as well. And thank you. With gratitude. Really, really appreciate your time. Hope you found this helpful. And we will definitely stay communicating with you about future programming. And I see more questions coming in. How can we register for the webinar in November? You will be getting information next week about that. Know more about gratitude from a compensation model. I suspect money dehumanizes. Yeah, I'm happy to share with you what they say, that if we can increase engagement, if we can acknowledge and express gratitude to our workers, to our employees, to our staff, there doesn't seem to be a formula right now for building that into the compensation model, but that's a very interesting topic. I really wouldn't mind discussing that further. Thank you for your time. Thank you very much. And so we will be sending you, correct me if I'm wrong, Jen, we will be sending you this recording, and that's also going to include a survey. Would love your feedback. What did you like about today's program? What would you like to hear more of, or maybe less of? Maybe for some of you, this was too much of the research. Your input, your feedback will be greatly, greatly appreciated. And even the quality of this webinar. You know, I hope that you could hear us very well. And I hope that the chat worked well. I hope there were no technical difficulties. I don't think we've seen any. So thank you very, very much. And look forward to connecting again with you over the next series of webinars. Have a great day, great rest of the week, and thank you so much for your help.